Welcome to Chrono Tales, where we breathe life into forgotten rulers and lost empires. Here, you'll journey through cinematic storytelling and richly detailed historical narration. Each episode reveals the hidden stories behind crowns and conquests. If you're fascinated by the world's overlooked leaders and the empires they left behind, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us unlock more lost chapters in history. In today's story, you'll follow the turbulent life of Harold Harefoot, the son of Cnut the Great, who seized England's throne amid swirling uncertainty. We'll delve into power struggles, secret alliances, and the tension that gripped a fractured realm. By the end, you'll know why this forgotten king's rule marked one of the most unstable successions in medieval England's history. Chapter 1: Shadows After the Storm. The death of Cnut the Great sends ripples through his North Sea empire. Once a force uniting England, Denmark and Norway, Cnut's passing leaves a deep void. Across these lands, nobles and commoners alike brace for a future no one can predict. The echoes of the storm that was Cnut's rule linger as new voices whisper in the shadowed aftermath. London sits shrouded in a thick, unsettling fog. Torches flicker along narrow lanes as nobles and messengers gather in secret corners of the city. The air is heavy with uncertainty. Each step echoes on cobblestones slick with night dew, tension growing with every whispered conversation. Questions murmur through the gloom: who will inherit the throne, and whose ambitions will shape England's future from these shadows? Cnut's legacy looms over every gathering. The halls of power fill with anxious fascism weeping, others calculating. Gone is the firm hand that had kept rival factions in check, leaving would-be kings and wary nobles to measure each other in the gloom. The threat of fractured rule seems all too real, and alliances once built on fear or favour teeter on the brink of collapse. Word travels quickly. Harold, the son often overshadowed by grander names, stands at the heart of this uncertainty. He is a man little known beyond royal chambers, yet tonight the whispers swirl around him. Some call him cautious, others ambitious, known as certain of his true strength. With the realm at a crossroads, Harold's fate is suddenly entwined with the destiny of kingdoms. Within candlelit rooms, nobles argue in hushed voices. Loyalty becomes a currency as each alliance is measured and weighed. Some wish to support Harold, if only to gain favour should he rise. Others hold back, hoping for a stronger claimant or perhaps a reason to fracture the fragile peace. Through cold stone and drifting fog, the pulse of the court beats with anticipation and fear alike. Outside, the streets pulse with rumour. Common folk huddle near market stalls, faces partly hidden beneath damp cloaks. They trade stories of Cnut's passing, each tale more embroidered than the last. Some speak of omens and ill fortune, others dream of renewed freedom. All know that tides are shifting, and none can predict what dawn's first light will bring to their restless city. The great abbeys and bustling taverns become theatres of speculation. Clerics pray for guidance while merchants wager on survival. Old wounds between Anglo-Saxon and Dane threaten to reopen. The legacy of North Sea conquest is fragile, and every word uttered, every alliance forged or broken tonight, will echo into the chapters yet unwritten. None dare sleep soundly, knowing the stakes at hand. Inside the palace, Harold paces the stone corridors, his mind a storm of questions. He remembers his father's stern voice and the expectations handed down to him. Does he possess the skill to rule well? The realm even accept him if he tries? Staring into the flicker of a solitary flame, he wonders about the friends and foes who will reveal themselves before morning comes. Elsewhere in the palace, influential nobles gather behind closed doors. Whispers of betrayal pass through lips pressed tight in secrecy. Some doubt Harold's claim, citing his birth and lineage. Others see opportunity in his uncertainty, hoping to mould the new king to their own ambitions. Past loyalties are questioned, and the oath-bound blades of the realm hang uneasily in the balance. One voice stands apart. Earl Godwin, a skilled political survivor. He speaks cautiously, assessing each faction with cold calculation. Godwin's influence stretches from court to countryside. If Harold is to secure the throne, the support of men like Godwin will be crucial. Even now, quiet promises are exchanged. The shape of the coming days will depend on whose loyalty can be bought or broken. Beyond the city walls, an uneasy peace settles over England's fields. With the harvest gathered, village fires burn low and peasants listen anxiously to travellers' tales. In every hamlet the people look to London with hope or dread. The fate of distant rulers is their fate too, for war or peace, famine or plenty, all will flow from the choices made in these fog-laden hours. Back in London, the River Thames carries the hushed voices of intrigue as barges glide through the drifting mist. Nobles arrive under heavy guard, acutely aware that loyalty is fickle and danger shadows every step. Some plot openly, others in secret, but all are drawn into the subtle dance of listening and promising, hoping the night's negotiations will secure their fortunes and their futures. In a small chapel the clergy convene for urgent prayer. Their voices rise in sombre echo, seeking guidance beyond earthly power. They hope to stave off chaos and preserve the fragile threads of unity woven by Cnut's reign. Yet even here, within these ancient stone walls, fear of God entwines with fear of Warrant. Each prayer betrays the uncertainty gripping the realm. As midnight approaches, London's ancient heart beats faster. The city's great gates are guarded more tightly than ever. Armed retainers watch both the approaches and their own shadows. Every torch cast against England's damp mist seems to birth more uncertainty. It is a city teetering between worlds, a kingdom both proud and perilously divided, waiting for a leader to emerge from the mist. Harold feels the weight of his father's legacy on his shoulders. Memories of Cnut's conquests and kindness swirl within him. The expectations of a ruler who once united enemies now press upon a son whose own future hangs by a thread. In private, Harold steels his resolve, determined not just to inherit, but to prove himself worthy in the eyes of both noble and commoner. Rumours of Harold's half-brother Harthacnut drift through the assembly halls. Some wonder if Harthacnut, with his mother's Danish family behind him, will press his claim to England's throne. Others whisper of hidden letters and secret envoys sent across turbulent seas. Every new bit of gossip is carefully weighed. Will England brace for negotiation or for the threat of civil war rekindled? The nobility tests the winds of change, hedging allegiances as the realm's stability hangs by a fragile thread. Old rivalries dormant under Cnut's reign threaten to erupt. With each passing hour, Harold must decide if he will be swayed by promise or pressured by threat. England's destiny, once a single vision, now branches into perilous paths twisting out of the London fog. Amidst this tension, the servants and retainers carry stories between rooms. Couriers move silently, sharing urgent words between locked chambers. In kitchens and stables, the everyday folk of the palace quietly make wagers on who will walk the royal halls as king. Their world, too, stands on the cusp of change, every whispered prediction exposing the depth of unease stretching from lord to labourer. In the flickering torchlight, once firm friendships tremble with the promise of reward or the threat of exile. Those who supported Cnut now weigh their futures. Will their fortunes rise or fall with Harold, or is it wiser to await another claimant? In these hours loyalty is minted anew, and betrayal waits quietly, hungry for opportunity amidst the kingdom's confusion. A cold wind rattles the windows of council rooms, striking nerves already frayed. Here the lines between ally and enemy blur. Promises are made not from trust, but necessity, each agreement shadowed by hesitation. The stakes are higher than ever, for the slightest misstep could determine the fate of England's crown. The storm that ended with Cnut's death now gathers new force in the moonlit silence. As dawn begins to creep across the horizon, the city's sleep is restless. Harold stands poised for a decision that will mark him in history as king, pretender, or pawn. The world holds its breath, listening for the declaration that will shape England's fate. The night's struggles are far from over. The uncertain morning promises new challenges and the relentless dance of power. Shadows linger as the city awakens. Harold Harefoot, once a lesser-known son, prepares to face the council of nobles. His name is spoken with hope, fear, and skepticism. Alliances have been shaped and broken overnight. With the weight of a fractured empire pressing upon him, Harold steps forward. The true contest for England's throne has only just begun, guided by the will of men and the fate of history itself. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Harold Harefoot steps quietly out of history's shadows, his presence both tentative and determined. Born the son of mighty Cnut and Elfgifu of Northampton, Harold's lineage is noble but contested. He is not raised among the silver-tongued courtiers of Denmark. Instead, the muddy fields and bustling markets of England are his home. Here, his desire to belong and prove himself begins to burn with quiet intensity. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Though Harold carries the blood of Cnut, whispers question whether he truly belongs to the royal line. His mother, Ælfgifu, is a formidable woman whose ambitions alarm those around her. Some courtiers murmur that Harold's birth itself was shrouded in secrecy, that his claim to the throne floats on rumours and suspicions. Yet Harold's eyes always seem fixed on the horizon, hungry for recognition. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Growing up in the heart of England, Harold learns early that power is never simply inherited, it must be seized and guarded. Unlike other princes destined for greatness, Harold's daily world is that of craftsmen, soldiers, and traders. He listens to tales spun by weathered elders, tales of conquest, justice, and loyalty. These become his silent lessons, shaping the young man eager to prove his worth. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. The question of legitimacy hangs heavy in the air surrounding Harold. Rivals at court, both English and Danish, weigh the strength of his claim, measuring him against the memory of his father, Cnut. Yet Harold is undeterred. Instead of retreating into doubt, he draws strength from adversity. Each suspicious glance and hushed rumour steels his resolve, fueling a hidden fire inside him. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Nor is Harold entirely alone in his ambitions. Ælfgifu of Northampton, his motheress, a shrewd and resourceful ally. Some say her ambitions for Harold are fiercer than his own, and that she navigates the treacherous world of court schemes with a calculated grace. Together, mother and son form a partnership, unified by necessity, ambition, and the forging fires of uncertainty. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Suspicion colours every corner of Harold's early life. Did Ælfgifu truly bear Cnut's son, or was Harold's claim a creation spun by ambition? Gossip spreads through cold stone corridors and across windswept fields alike. Yet rather than break under the weight of such doubts, Harold becomes more determined. He watches, waits, and learns to move quietly through the shadows of political intrigue. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Harold grows with the stubbornness of the English soil itself. His hands become familiar with sword hilts and saddle leather, not just the soft privileges of nobility. Among the warriors and common folk, he earns cautious respect. Though he rarely addresses his rivals, whispers directly, his gaze is unwavering. With each season he transforms no longer just a claimant, but a leader poised for his chance. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. The landscape of Harold's homeland shapes his resolve. Fog rolling in over the fens, forests whispering secrets, and towns busy with the concerns of ordinary people. Unlike his royal half-brother Harthacnut, far off in Denmark, Harold is present in the life of England. He draws inspiration from its heartbeats, the resilience of its people, and the stubborn hope that fills its cold dawns. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. In hushed rooms and crowded halls the question persists, is Harold truly Cnut's son? Even so, Ælfgifu stands unwavering by her child. She matches every challenge with clever strategies, weaving alliances where she can, and defending their claim with relentless energy. Harold observes, absorbing lessons in both loyalty and suspicion, watching as his mother turns adversity into an advantage for them both. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. No royal upbringing protects Harold from hardship. Instead, he is shaped by struggle by learning to defend himself with words and with steel. His determination is not forged in palatial splendour, but in the dance of survival and ambition among England's restless nobility. In these challenging early years, Harold becomes the Harefoot, quick, unseen, and ready to leap into history's glare. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. As twilight stretches over ancient meadows, Harold reflects on tales of kings who rose from uncertain beginnings. He knows that, for many, the stain of disputed birth never truly fades. But Harold is less interested in rumours and more in deeds. He practices with the sword, learns the subtle art of negotiation, and always listens to the shifting winds of power. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Court gatherings are tense, with every move observed and remembered. Harold, taught by his mother's cautious wisdom, moves with deliberate care. He speaks little, but when he does, his words are chosen like armour. Each gesture is meant to deflect suspicion, to show strength without arrogance. He learns that leadership is often measured by what one endures in silence rather than what is loudly proclaimed. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Yet, beneath the careful poise lies the relentless beat of Harold's ambition. He dreams of justifying his birth every time he faces a skeptical lord or a rival prince. Every slight is a reminder of what he must overcome. In these moments, Harold's resolve crystallizes. He will not allow whispered doubts to shape his destiny. Instead, he will carve his place in England's future by his own hands. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Elef Gifu, meanwhile, maneuvers through the labyrinth of politics. She is adept at reading intentions, at sensing which noble might support Harold and which pose a threat. Her ambitions are entwined with her son's survival. Every alliance formed, every gift exchanged, is part of a larger web she spins with patience. Harold watches, learning that power is as much about subtlety as it is about force. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. In the flicker of a candlelight, Harold listens to stories of his father, the mighty Cnut. He hears both praise and warning the force that built an empire, the cunning that ruled with both steel and reason. For Harold, these stories become a measure. Can he ever be more than Cnut's shadow? Or will his own name, Harefoot, be spoken with respect one day, the doubts buried under feats he has yet to achieve? Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Each year brings new tensions. Harold sees friends become foes, and allies lost through shifting loyalties. Danger is always present as assassins in the shadows or rivals in council. Harold survives by adapting quickly, earning his sobriquet, Harefoot, for his swiftness and cunning. He becomes a survivor, his character shaped by the constant test of suspicion and ambition. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. The land of England itself becomes part of Harold's story. Its rivers, forests, and ancient roads are familiar as kin. He patrols its boundaries, settling disputes and listening to the fears of his people. Unlike nobles cocooned in distant Denmark, Harold gains a reputation as someone present and engaged. This growing sense of responsibility becomes one of his greatest tools in proving himself to his doubters. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Elef Gifu's shadow looms over council meetings. Her strategies challenge even the most seasoned noble. She is dismissed as an outsider by some, yet her ability to forge alliances and counter accusations is unmatched. Harold silently admires her stubbornness, understanding that her courage is rooted in survival. Together their partnership weaves the tapestry of what will become Harold's brief, tumultuous reign. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Harold's reputation grows among the people. He is seen not just as a claimant, but a guardian keen on protecting England's borders. The commoners admire his willingness to walk among them, listen to their hardships and solve disputes. Step by step, his legitimacy is built on action rather than birthright. The land whispers his name with curiosity, a possible king shaped by the trials of ordinary life. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. At night, when doubts gnaw deepest, Harold finds comfort in simple routines, the sharpening of a blade, the quiet rustle of parchment, or the low talk of trusted allies. While others debate his worth in council chambers, Harold prepares in silence. Each sleepless night tempers him further. He comes to understand that a king is expected not only to fill a throne, but to withstand solitude and relentless scrutiny. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. The struggle for legitimacy becomes Harold's daily trial. At every feast, each council, he must stand firm while others look for signs of weakness. Yet he refuses to lash out at detractors. His patience becomes a weapon, his measured responses gradually earning the grudging respect of his peers. He learns that power is often claimed by those stubborn enough to persist, even beneath the burden of rumour. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. As seasons pass, Harold's determination hardens. He understands more clearly what is at stake in not only his own future, but the fate of all who might rely on his leadership. Still, the doubts remain, shadowing every achievement. Each victory is met with whispers, every failure magnified. Yet Harold presses onward, guided by hope, his mother's counsel, and the lessons carved into his very bones by adversity. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. Rivals abroad and at home resent the ambitions of both mother and son. Some seek to undermine Harold at every turn, hoping to expose a fatal flaw. But Harold, accustomed to living in the midst of suspicion, endures. He looks beyond the enmity, focusing on what he can control: his actions, his reputation, and the bonds forged with those willing to believe in his cause. Chapter 2. The Harefoot emerges. As the chapter closes, Harold stands more certain than ever before. Though the glare of scrutiny never fades, his resolve is ironclad. Each challenge survived only strengthens him. The boy born under the shadow of suspicion now faces the dawn as England's contender, a Harefoot, who, whatever tomorrow brings, will refuse to vanish quietly into the pages of forgotten kings. Chapter 3. The Rival Crown. In the wake of King Cnut's death, England does not settle quietly. Two powerful factions emerge, drawing deep lines through the noble courts. On one side stands Queen Emma, resolute and calculating, sheltering her son Harthacnut in the distant halls of Denmark. On the other, Harold's supporters conspire, sensing opportunity amidst chaos. With every passing day, the kingdom's fate grows more uncertain as loyalties are quietly redrawn. Behind closed doors, secret discussions ripple through ancient stone chambers. Leading nobles gather in hushed tones, each weighing their interests carefully. The bishops holding spiritual power find themselves courted by both camps. Some clergy prefer Emma's lawful claim, others see in Harold a chance to assert forgotten rights. As alliances form and shift, every decision made in candlelit rooms will send tremors through the heart of England's realm. With the Queen and her son separated by the rough North Sea, a sense of urgency grows among their followers. Messengers slip across harbours and woodlands bearing covert messages, each one a lifeline between Denmark and their vulnerable allies in England. Emma counsels patience, trusting in legitimacy and royal blood, while Harthacnut's absence begins to test their camps. Resolve as pressure mounts from the rival side. Harold's support swells in the south, where influential earls whisper promises in exchange for lands and privileges. Among these ambitious men moves Earl Godwin, whose cunning and ambition become tools in the struggle. Encouraged by Harold's willingness to reward loyalty, Godwin and his peers seize the moment to consolidate their regional power, making their own gambits to tip the fragile balance of the kingdom's future. The bishops, more than mere spectators, meet in secrecy to debate the morality and legality of backing Harold. Some hold sacred the oath to Emma and her absent son. Others argue the realm needs a king who is present, someone to steady the land's trembling foundations. Fears of civil war hang over every conversation, and the room shudders with the weight of their choice. Each bishop's loyalty is a coin on the table. Rumours spread like wildfire through town squares and amongst the servant class. The common folk debate what little they know, unsure which noble faction will champion their interests. Old stories of betrayal and kinstrife emerge, fueling anxiety in the villages. As uncertainty spreads, so too does unease, for every family is bound, in some way, to the fate of England's crown and the destiny of its next ruler. At the heart of the struggle, Queen Emma's household stands divided. Some advisers urge her to risk everything and return to England, arguing it is the only way to defend Harthacnut's birthright. Others counsel waiting for the tides to shift. Every whispered debate carries echoes of lost dynasties and the fear of exile. Emma herself remains stoic, her gaze fixed on regaining her throne and securing her son's future. Meanwhile, Harold's followers move with quiet purpose through the shires, rallying support among influential landowners. They promise stability and the restoration of old Anglo-Saxon traditions, winning over cautious nobles with strategic gifts. Each promise and handshake creates new cracks in the existing order. Beneath their calm exteriors, Harold's men understand that every ally gained and every enemy made will shape the course of England for generations. Messages pass swiftly from the King's Council in Denmark to trusted agents lurking in London taverns. Royal seals are broken, and coded letters deciphered beneath torchlight. Spies and informers shift their allegiance depending on who offers more coin or greater power. In this game of dangerous secrets, an errant word can spell doom not just for the messenger, but for entire families whose fortunes rise and fall with the tide of the crown. The noble council grows restless as days turn to weeks without a clear succession. English magnates convene in shadowed halls, their patience waning. Some grow bold, demanding an end to the stalemate. Harold's supporters argue his local birth and presence give him the best claim, while Emma's backers plead for restraint and honour. Every meeting threatens to dissolve into accusation, the room thick with unsaid grievances and concealed ambitions. Beneath the solemn archways of ancient cathedrals, high clergy contemplate the future of England. Their prayers echo with the weight of responsibility, knowing that God's blessing or disfavour could legitimize an uncertain king. Some priests shun politics, fearing to offend the victor. Others press their luck, brokering quiet deals with both camps, hedging their spiritual authority in the hope of shaping destiny without drawing the ire of any side. In Denmark, Cnut paces the long halls, frustrated by distance and circumstance. His mother's counsel pushes him to prepare for war or diplomacy. Each night he dreams of a throne that seems to slip farther from his grasp. Letters from England fuel his resolve, painting Harold as an opportunist and urging immediate action. Cnut's waiting is no less dangerous than open battle, for in waiting kingdoms can be lost. Tempers flare at the royal court as news arrives of fresh defections and shifting loyalties. Those closest to the throne become wary of each other. Paranoia runs high. Some nobles, fearing betrayal, fortify their estates and muster household guards. Others gamble on risky alliances, enticed by promises from both camps. Uncertainty is a weapon, and no one knows when or how it will be unsheathed. The fabric of unity begins to unravel. Night falls over London, where clandestine meetings unfold beneath the cover of darkness. Flame-lit faces huddle close, exchanging treaties and whispered oaths. Some offer bribes to sway doubtful hearts, others threaten ruin to those who hesitate. The city's labyrinthine streets become the battleground for loyalty, its alleys echoing with footsteps of messengers and spies. Each new secret twists the fate of England one step further from certainty. Away from the halls of power, families listen anxiously for tidings, knowing that every man's fortune hangs on the decisions of distant nobles. The countryside waits, fields untended and ventures postponed, as the spectre of unrest shadows village life. Old feuds threaten to reignite, and even the poorest cottager feels the chill of royal intrigue. In such times, hope and fear walk side by side, as fragile as dew upon morning grass. With every passing week, the question of succession grows more urgent. Harold's camp moves quickly, calling together assemblies and urging the coronation they believe will unite the realm. Yet, scattered resistance remains steadfast, with Emmis loyalists insisting on the legitimacy of Cnut's claim. The kingdom stands on a knife edge, its destiny swaying dangerously between reconciliation and open confrontation, with only the boldest voices steering the course forward. As the situation intensifies, trusted advisers dispatch emissaries to foreign courts searching for allies. Envoys meet with Norse and Frankish lords, promising rewards in exchange for men and ships. Every fleeting alliance offers hope or threat as England's troubles ripple across the sea. The network of deception and diplomacy grows more tangled, and the wider world prepares to intervene if opportunity or necessity arises from England's divided heart. Old scars from earlier rule shape the strategies of both factions. Emma remembers exile, betrayal, and the desperate need for loyalty. Harold's supporters evoke the memory of Anglo-Saxon independence, eager to cast off the last vestiges of Danish dominance. Both sides wield the past as both weapon and shield, distorting memories to solidify new alliances, while old relatives and loyal retainers watch the growing storm with uncertainty. Priests and monks record the unfolding crisis in guarded lines of parchment, wary of angering those who might soon wear the crown. Chronicles survive fire and sword, quietly noting which bishops shifted allegiances and which nobles betrayed old ties. In the background, England's storytellers and skalds begin to weave these tense days into legend, their words shaping memory before the victor has even been crowned. The mood in the royal court fluctuates between grim determination and fragile hope. Emma grows restless, biding time as she gathers resources for her son's cause. Her confidants monitor the nobilities, shifting allegiances with hawk-like vigilance, ready to pounce on any sign of weakness. Even in Denmark, the chill wind carries rumours of Harold's growing power, forcing the Queen to prepare for both negotiation and the possibility of war. Harold's camp grows increasingly confident, sensing that time is on their side. They push for a swift coronation in London, betting that an established king will quell doubts and rally the hesitant. Royal banners are prepared and celebratory feasts quietly discussed, though nothing is secured while enemies remain at large. Underneath the bravado, some supporters worry about reprisals if fortune turns against them, for England's memory of betrayal is long. By river banks and along muddy roads, informers pass among merchant wagons and reclusive shepherds, whispering updates from both camps. Even the everyday people find ways to play their part, delivering warnings, hiding envoys, or smuggling letters. While the grand stage is set at court, the lesser-known heroes of crisis move in shadows, their choices sometimes more decisive than those ever made beneath towering palatial roofs. As the chapter's final days approach, the tension is nearly unbearable. Anxious rumours sweep through England's parishes and markets. Will Harold seize the throne? Can Cnut return before it's too late? In this climactic moment, every noble, priest and commoner holds their breath. The balance is delicate, one decision away from disaster or a new beginning. The land itself waits, expectant for the dawn of England's uncertain tomorrow. With destinies bound to the choices of a powerful few, England teeters at the edge of transformation. The fate of the crown rests in the hands of ambitious kings, shrewd queens, and the silent loyalty of those in the shadows. As the rivals prepare for what comes next, every heartbeat echoes with the weight of history. Soon an irreversible step will be taken, and the next chapter of England's story will be written in deeds, not words. Chapter 4. The Coronation Under Cloud. The morning sky was thick with gathering clouds as Harold approached the hallowed doors of Winchester Cathedral. The air buzzed with anticipation and unease. Nobles in richly dyed robes mingled with common folk, their faces a canvas of hope and suspicion. Even the walls seemed closer, as though history itself held its breath for what was about to unfold within those ancient stones. Inside the cathedral, the grand nave echoed with the low murmurs of the congregation. At the altar, the archbishop's voice was solemn, his blessing weighed down by reservation. As Harold knelt, a shaft of pale light fell upon the crown. The holy words filled the space, but in the shadows lingered whispers of doubt, reminders that the throne was not yet at peace, nor the kingdom united behind its new king. The coronation unfolded with all the pomp expected of a royal ascent, yet beneath the golden velvet, uncertainty took root. Some lords watched with stony silence, others exchanged uneasy glances. In the back pews, the people whispered about Cnut's whereabouts, each rumour growing bolder than the last. For many gathered there, this crowning carried as much anxiety as celebration. A chorus of hymns rose to the vaulted ceilings, their melodies wavering in the chilly air. The incense swirled in hesitant patterns, as though unsure of the moment's sanctity. Harold's hands trembled as the crown was placed upon his head, and the eyes of England seemed to weigh him on invisible scales. The murmurs of loyalty were quiet, reluctantly given, their sincerity in question. Outside the cathedral, the mood was equally conflicted. Townsfolk gathered along the muddy streets, some tossing petals, others clutching their cloaks against a brewing drizzle. Church bells rang, but their peals seemed muted, less a triumphant announcement than a careful acknowledgment. In hushed tones the crowds debated, was Harold truly their king, or merely a usurper in borrowed splendour? Even as the church offered its blessing, the clergy's support was not free from caution. Old priests remembered the reign of Cnut, the strength that held the land together. Now they studied Harold with guarded eyes, worried that this new reign lacked the certainty of divine favour. Their prayers drifted up like fragile threads, hoping to bind a troubled nation to an untested king. Within the royal hall, the celebration was more subdued than boisterous. Goblets clinked and musicians played soft melodies, but anxiety crept beneath every conversation. Trusted advisers cautioned Harold to remain vigilant, even as they offered congratulations. There was talk of foreign spies, loyalists to Cnut, and shifting allegiances among the powerful earls. Safety, Harold knew, would be hard to win. Rumours mingled with the scent of roasted meats. Some whispered that Viking ships had been sighted along the coast, others that Cnut's emissaries were already stirring rebellion. Harold drank from the ceremonial cup with measured calm, but his mind raced with the weight of every rumour. For all his regal bearing, he understood that England remained a land divided against itself. As the evening wore on, the celebration outside faded into hushed uncertainty. Faint torches flickered along the streets, casting long shadows that danced with tension. Commoners returned to their homes in small, anxious clusters, each family uncertain about what tomorrow would bring. The unity once promised by a royal coronation seemed as distant as the sun behind the unending clouds. Inside the cathedral, the choir's song came to an uneasy end. Candles guttered in the draught, drawing sighs from anxious attendants. Harold, now draped in regal cloth, felt the enormity of his task pressing on his shoulders. With every glance across the hall, he saw the lingering doubts on faces both familiar and strange. He did not yet wear the throne with comfort. Among the assembled nobles, alliances shifted like shadows. Some moved to swear loyalty, their words careful and measured. Others hung back, their silence heavy with uncertainty. The rivalries and old feuds that marked Anglo-Saxon courts had not disappeared, they merely hid behind polite smiles and guarded toasts. Harold took in every interaction, knowing trust was a rare and precious thing. Late into the night, Harold paced the halls of his new court, replaying every murmur heard that day. He gazed out at the storm-racked sky, searching for any sign that his rule would find peace. Echoes of the archbishop's reserved blessing clung to his memory, a reminder that holy approval did not grant unquestioned loyalty. The path ahead was shrouded in doubt. Servants moved quietly through shadowy corridors, their eyes wide with unspoken questions. Would Harold prove a worthy king, as his father had, or would England fall into chaos once more? In the royal chamber, Harold steeled himself behind closed doors. Even sleep offered no escape, only vivid dreams of betrayal, lost crowns, and a brother's shadow that never seemed to fade. As horses stamped in muddy courtyards outside, word spread quickly from Winchester through the shires. Messengers carried news of Harold's coronation with mixed warnings and celebration. Some villagers welcomed the new king. Others hunkered in suspicion, fearful that fresh quarrels and invasions would soon sweep across the land. The kingdom's fate teetered on a knife's edge. Inside the cathedral treasury, clerics secured the regal symbols, their faces marked by stress. The coronation regalia, so recently used, now felt like relics from another era. Discussion in hushed Latin circled among them. Would Harold pay homage to tradition, or forge an unpredictable path? Even the ancient treasures seemed uneasy, uncertain of what this reign would mean for England. Outside, rain began to fall in earnest, streaking down stained glass and cloaking the city in gloom. For the people of Winchester, the weather mirrored their mood grey, watchful and tense. Old widows made the sign of the cross. Children clung to mothers' skirts. England, on this coronation day, felt united only by its uncertainty, held together by fragile hope and ever-present fears. High above the city, the abbey bells marked the passing hours but brought no comfort. The day seemed suspended in an uneasy present, the future clouded by the return of old ghosts. Noble families sent letters back to their strongholds, weighing whether to commit to this new king or hedge their allegiance until the next crisis. Loyalty on this day was not easily pledged. Throughout the realm, old loyalties whispered and grumbled. The memory of Cnut's rule was fresh for many, and Harold's supporters clung to hope. In alehouses and fields, men grumbled about Harold the Harefooter's speed to seize the crown, his questionable right. As darkness fell, those doubts only sharpened, setting the stage for long nights of scheming and unease. Yet, in one quiet chapel corner, a candle burned brighter. A young scribe wrote the day's events with trembling hand, hoping the chroniclers of history would find Harold worthy. Each word was a prayer that the realm might find peace, that tonight's storm would someday pass. In that moment, hope still clung to the future, flickering in the uncertain breeze of a troubled England. Harold, now king in name, knew that rulership demanded vigilance. Every decision would be weighed for signs of weakness or strength. Even in these first hours, he was forced to look beyond celebration, to the realities of power. The crown felt colder than he imagined, its burden far heavier. Behind every formal gesture lay reminders of the storm still raging beyond the cathedral's stone walls. In the dim royal quarters, Harold gathered his council. Trusted men and wary allies filled the chamber with cautious words. Maps were rolled out, threats debated. Even as they plotted England's safety, the sense of urgency pressed on every heart. Hard choices would come swiftly. For Harold, the crown meant not simply ruling, but surviving, a task made harder by the uncertainty gripping his kingdom. As the first sleepless night descended, Harold paced before the flickering hearth. Thoughts pressed upon him like the weight of the clouded sky. He recalled his father, Cnut, and the stern expectations of kingship. Harold's trials had only begun. His resolve, tested by swirling doubts and distant threats, would determine if England's patchwork of lords and people could ever truly unite behind him. Meanwhile, in Denmark, distant messengers rode hard beneath the northern stars. News of Harold's coronation would soon reach Cnut, stirring old ambitions. In the silence of the night, Harold's anxieties grew. He feared the approaching storm, not just of weather, but of war and rival threats that shadowed every move and ensured the throne of England was anything but secure. So ended the day of Harold's coronation under heavens both watchful and uneasy. England's new king bore the crown, but not the undivided loyalty of his people. As the storm continued outside, Harold lay wakeful in his chamber, haunted by the knowledge that every sunrise would bring new challenges. In the annals of kings his rule had begun, but the battle for England was far from over. Chapter 5. The Struggle for Legitimacy. In the shadows of the English throne, uncertainty clings to every stone and torch-lit corridor. Harold Harefoot is king, but few kneel willingly. In far-off exile, Queen Emma refuses silence, spreading word that Harold is a usurper. Even among England's nobility, whispers grow, doubts and ambitions weaving together like a silent, invisible web, intent on toppling the fragile rule of Cnut's son, No day in Harold's court feels truly safe. Messages cross the countryside, telling of nobles meeting in secret, forging pacts beneath the veil of night. Some remember Cnut Emma's absent son as the rightful ruler. Others weigh the promises Harold whispers in hurried meetings. The sense of danger is ever present, every loyal gesture possibly masking a blade. For Harold, every sunrise brings not comfort, but a new test of strength and resolve. Determined to solidify his claim, Harold turns to the common folk. In bustling market towns and sleepy villages, he seeks to be seen as a king who listens and acts. Gifted bread, lowered taxes, and fair judgments earn him cautious gratitude. Yet for every smile offered in daylight, there are suspicious glances and conversations that halt when his envoys pass by. Winning hearts is as much a challenge as winning battles among lords. Emma, ever resourceful in exile, refuses to be forgotten. She pens fierce letters and entreaties, stirring those who would oppose Harold. Her words, gilded with memory and legitimacy, rally supporters all throughout Normandy and beyond. Tales of Cnut brave, just, and awaiting his time spread quickly. Across the Channel, Emma's campaign of words becomes as threatening as swords drawn in the shadows, fueling a silent uprising within England. The nobility's loyalty is a shifting tide. Some recall favours owed to Cnut, believing Harold's blood gives him the right to rule. Others see opportunity in change, plotting future rewards and advantages if Cnut returns. Gatherings once marked by song and feasting turn private and tense. Loyalists to Harold and Emma's partisans share meals under a thin veil of courtesy, every toast laced with caution. The court hums with discord just beneath its calm exterior. As rumours of Harold's supposed illegitimacy gain ground, the air in England crackles with distrust. Churchmen weigh in, their sermons and whispers shaping opinions. One bishop delivers a homily hinting at the sin of false kings, and the message ripples outward. Harold's spies report every slight and rumour, but his efforts to silence dissent are like stamping upon water difficult, ineffectual. Even silence can be a weapon sharpened against his fragile reign. Beneath the surface, intrigue pulses. Nobles commission secret meetings, guarded by nervous servants and swearing oaths before ancient relics. Spies slip gold into greedy palms, prying for secrets. Meanwhile, common folk huddle by hearths, trading wild stories. Some say Harold's birth was illegitimate. Others speak of omens in the sky. The land of England seems split, with loyalties as flammable as the thatch on a wind-bitten roof. Harold's efforts to display authority become bolder. He organizes grand assemblies, standing before gathered nobles in regal attire, voice steady and bold. He dispenses justice with a strict hand, hoping to command respect through fairness and, when needed, firmness. Some lords applaud his decisiveness, while others quietly scoff. Every official act is weighed and measured not just for its outcome, but for the deeper message it sends through the anxious ranks of the realm. At street level, Harold's image is crafted carefully. Poets and town criers sing his praises, recounting tales of courage and humility. Gifts are bestowed upon villagers loyal to his cause. But not every audience is convinced. Some faces remain closed, mistrustful of royal proclamations. Old stories of Cnut's fairness are quietly compared to Harold's uncertain rule. Even celebrated victories are greeted with an undercurrent of skepticism and the sense that danger quietly lurks nearby. Behind closed doors, Emma's partisans plot. Letters are smuggled in sewn sleeves, coded in poems and prayers. Trusted men cross borders under false names, stirring hope of Harold's return. Each message feeds the hopes of those unready to yield to Harold. In shadowed chapels and private chambers, loyalty is measured as much in whispered intentions as public declarations, with few daring to speak too loudly of the future they long to see. Even the landscape churns with unease. Bands of mercenaries patrol the roads, guarding estates and intimidating rivals. Small skirmishes erupt on distant fields, disputes over taxes, land or loyalty, sometimes ending in blood. All the while, travellers bring news of unrest and shifting alliances. Harold must respond quickly, his messengers riding by misty dawn to ensure order. Yet chaos often strikes where his reach is shortest, and peace seems ever fleeting. To fortify alliances, Harold seeks new bonds. He offers titles and land to wavering nobles, eager for gratitude that might tip the scales. Some accept, grateful for recognition. Others take the gifts but keep their counsel guarded. This courtly dance of favour and suspicion defines every meeting. Smiles hide second thoughts, and even shared triumphs are silently pondered for the advantage they might yield if the winds of power were to change. In the great halls, the atmosphere is tense. Banquets once filled with music and laughter are subdued, watched over by armed guards and wary stewards. A misplaced word or lingering glance can hint at dangerous affiliations. Allies and adversaries sit side by side, the lines blurred by necessity. Harold must tread carefully, knowing that each guest is both potential supporter and possible threat. Amidst the candlelight, trust ebbs like the evening tide. The people of England, though wary, are not untouched by Harold's efforts. He offers charity to the hungry and protection to villages plagued by thieves. In fields and market squares, he seeks a connection to the land and its people. Yet, as the news from the court filters outward, every gesture is examined for hidden motives. Gratitude coexists with doubt, and the bonds between ruler and ruled are as delicate as spun gold. Religious leaders wield their own influence, blessing or condemning Harold in subtle ways. Prayers are offered for England's peace, while sermons hint at the responsibilities of kingship. Some clergy counsel patience and acceptance, others quietly urge vigilance against illegitimate rule. The church becomes both battleground and sanctuary, shaping not only spiritual lives but the very fate of the realm. Harold must pay careful heed, lest he lose their support entirely. Rumours swirl faster than horsemen. Some say omens spell disaster for Harold's. Rain a blood moon, failed harvests, or strange lights glimpsed over riverbanks at night. Superstitions take root, nurtured by Emma's supporters but fed by every misfortune. In a land so easily stirred by legend and fear, every story told by firelight can spread like wildfire, undermining Harold's authority even as he works to project calm and control. Tensions erupt nearby. A prominent lord refuses Harold's summons, sending only a cryptic letter. Harold reacts swiftly, dispatching soldiers to enforce royal command, but his power is tested with each open defiance. Skirmishes break out, sometimes settling old scores, sometimes driven by new grievances. The countryside becomes a patchwork of loyalties where family, wealth, and age-old grudges pull even the most steadfast subjects in competing directions. Seeking to counter Emma's reach, Harold displays acts of mercy. Prisoners are pardoned at public spectacles, with Harold framed as a king both firm and compassionate. Songs are commissioned to spread tales of his fairness, hinting that only his rule can restore order. Yet for every soul won by these gestures there are others, unmoved hearts and minds already claimed by dreams of a different king. In this contest no victory ever feels absolute or secure. Winter's approach brings added uncertainty. Supplies dwindle in some shires, and Harold's ability to provide is tested. Appeals for aid travel faster than solutions. Opportunists exploit hardship, banditry rises, and rival factions see weakness to exploit. The mood across England grows brittle, with hope and fear tangled together. For Harold, every weathered storm is a quiet victory, but he knows that true peace cannot be forced simply by the turning of seasons. In distant halls, loyalists to Emma and Harthacnut dream of return. They speak of ships being built and warriors mustering along foreign shores. Every rumour of a fleet on the horizon stokes dread in Harold's advisers. Even talk of invasion, whether true or myth, shapes decisions made in the king's name. Harold understands that he must rule not only over lands and people, but over the very stories England tells about its future. Occasionally Harold finds brief moments of calm. He walks the corridors of his court in silence, reflecting on the ghosts of kings past and the burden of his crown. Yet even these spells of quiet are tinged with tension. Every sound a door closing, hurried footsteps reminds him that peace is a rare and fleeting thing. The struggle for legitimacy is all-encompassing, haunting his sleep and shaping every word he dares to speak. Plots unfurl like vines throughout the halls. Servants overhear too much, lords manoeuvre patiently, and days pass with mounting uncertainty. Harold sends trusted men to gather news, uncovering schemes sometimes too late to prevent. Each conspiracy unravelled exposes another layer of doubt and division. In this precarious world, alliances shift overnight, and Harold survives not by brute strength alone, but by outmanoeuvring those who already claim to see his end. Fires burn long into the night as Harold's supporters keep vigil, ever alert for signs of rebellion. In the flickering light, plans are weighed and defensive measures quietly rehearsed. Meanwhile, Emma's followers find new ways to signal hope for Harthacnut's return. In the uncertain darkness, loyalty is a matter of heart and circumstance. Each night, as England's fate hangs in the balance, Harold prepares yet again to meet dawn's many new challenges. Through struggle and intrigue, Harold's rule persists strenuous, hard-won. The kingdom remains restless, laced with hidden resentment and anticipation. Even as he reinforces bonds and outwits rivals, Harold's crown sits uneasy. His battle is not merely for control of the land, but for the hearts, minds, and memories of those he seeks to rule. With every victory, he knows that the greater struggle, the relentless pursuit of legitimacy still, awaits on the uncertain road ahead. Chapter 6. Emma's Resistance. Across the misty waters of the Channel, Queen Emma rises as a formidable opponent to Harold's rule. Once crowned beside mighty King's widow of both Felred and Cnut, Emma's exile does little to dull her political cunning. In distant Flanders her mind turns ceaselessly, crafting plots and alliances. With every message sent and promise made, she works to undermine Harold's fragile hold on the English throne. Emma's strength lies not in armies, but in the art of alliances. She reaches out to old supporters, rekindling loyalty among nobles who feel slighted by Harold. From grand halls to candlelit chambers, whispers spread of Emma's intent, the Queen's words weaving hope for change. Even far from England, her influence grows, making Harold's task as king ever more treacherous and uncertain, the prospect of her return looming in the minds of his enemies. Harold senses the threat posed by Emma's schemes. Her letters and secret emissaries cross the sea, stirring unrest where there should have been calm. Some ealdormen waver in their loyalty, remembering the days of Cnut, when Emma's power brought stability and order. Rumours ripple through courts and countrysides, talk of young Harthacnut's rightful claim, and the Queen Mother's unyielding resolve to see her son restored to England's crown. From her exile, Emma writes to those who might support her cause. She urges nobles to question Harold's legitimacy, and offers promises of favour should her son return. Envoys depart in secrecy, carrying her words across stormy waters to trusted hands. Each missive is a piece in her chess game, turning scattered ambitions into a rallying cry. Emma does not simply wait, she orchestrates, hoping to ignite action that will shake Harold's uneasy reign. Meanwhile, Harold's own advisers warn him of Emma's growing influence abroad. Fears rise that support for Harthacnut is mounting faster than expected. The kingdom's foundation trembles beneath the weight of Emma's plotting, with loyalty shifting like sand. Harold is forced into a precarious balance, appeasing restive nobles, strengthening his hold on the capital, and preparing for the day when Emma's plans may bring invasion or internal revolt. Emma's greatest ally is her son Harthacnut, ruler of Denmark. She pushes him relentlessly, urging a swift return to England with force if needed. In detailed letters, she describes the weaknesses of Harold's regime, opportunities for strike and subversion. Across the Channel, mother and son become a team, Emma weaving intrigue, Cnut mustering men and ships, both waiting for the right moment to challenge Harold's claim in dramatic fashion. The people of England hear tales of Emma's exile stories cast in both shadow and admiration. Some see her as a wronged queen, denied her rights by Harold's ambition. Others grumble about foreign influence, wary of what a return might bring. Through the fog of uncertainty, Emma's legend swells, both a hope for the discontented and a spectre hovering over Harold, warning that his crown is not yet secure. In the halls of power, subtle gestures betray hidden loyalties. Emma's ring is worn by more than a few nobles, a silent badge of allegiance. Messages wrapped in wax wind their way into the heart of England's court. Even friends of Harold are unsettled by the Queen's relentless intrigue. Emma's web ensnares those eager for change, while Harold becomes ever more isolated, his circle tightening as he doubts the loyalty of even his closest allies. As pressure mounts, Harold takes drastic steps to suppress Emma's influence. He seizes estates belonging to her supporters, meting harsh punishments to those caught plotting. Spies are dispatched across the kingdom, hunting for the faintest trace of conspiracy. Yet, the more Harold clamps down, the more unrest simmers below the surface. Emma's spirit of resistance grows stronger in the minds of those who remember her boldness and cunning as queen. Emma's presence haunts even Harold's dreams. He envisions ships crossing the Channel, banners of Denmark unfurling on English shores. Her voice seems to echo in the corridors of power, sharp, dignified, unyielding. Each night, Harold is reminded that exile is not defeat for Emma. Her resilience, her ability to inspire hope and fear alike, drives him to desperation as England stands on uncertain ground, awaiting the next move in their dangerous game. In Flanders, Emma courts alliances with local rulers, offering promises of power and wealth in return for support. Gold passes hands and warriors are quietly enlisted, all under the guise of political maneuvering. By skillfully navigating foreign courts, she sets the stage for a military challenge. Each favour called in, each pact forged, brings England's future closer to the brink of open conflict, a testament to Emma's unparalleled skills in diplomacy and strategy. Letters smuggled into England urge Cnut's supporters to bide their time and prepare for his return. Emma knows the importance of secrecy and timing. She plays a long game, fostering hope with whispers of imminent rescue, encouraging resistance but avoiding open rebellion. Her patience and discipline become her greatest weapons, planting seeds of insurrection that will one day erupt if Harold falters even for a moment in his precarious hold on the throne. Harold responds with propaganda of his own. Royal edicts and proclamations denounce Emma, painting her as a meddling foreign influence intent on dividing England. Loyal scribes spread word of his right to rule, portraying him as the guardian against chaos. But for every scroll that circulates, an equal number of secret messages from Emma circulate underground, turning the conflict into one fought not just with swords, but with ideas and loyalties. Emma's supporters maintain secret gatherings in rural halls and city corners. They share coded messages, recalling Emma's past wisdom and the stability she once brought to England. Quiet toasts are raised in her name, and plans are whispered in dark corners, each faction waiting for news from across the Channel. The spirit of resistance becomes a gentle but constant undercurrent, always threatening to rise when the time for open defiance is at hand. Harold redoubles his efforts to cement loyalty among the great earls and churchmen. He offers gifts and lands, promising protection to those who remain steadfast. Yet, every gesture is shadowed by dubthave, these men sworn allegiance for reward or solely out of fear. The tension between false loyalty and true allegiance grows, fueled by Emma's persistent efforts to sway the hearts of England's elite back to her son's cause. Emma is not without risks in her campaign. Every alliance she forms in exile brings the possibility of betrayal. Trust is a precious and dangerous currency. Spies trade secrets for gold, and not all messages make it safely home. Yet Emma's determination never wavers. Even as threats to her safety grow, she uses every resource at her disposal to keep her mission alive, knowing the fate of two kingdoms hangs in the balance. The church, caught between loyalty to Harold and old ties to Emma, finds itself deeply divided. Some bishops remember Emma's patronage, her acts of charity and efforts to protect holy lands during past wars. Others, wary of further turmoil, lean toward Harold. Religious dissent becomes another front in the conflict, with sermons and prayers reflecting the hidden war for the soul of England, as well as for its troubled crown. With each passing month, Emma's legend only grows. Poets and storytellers keep her name alive, weaving tales of her cleverness and her heartbreak. Songs are sung of the Queen Mother on foreign soil, of her longing gaze cast back toward England. To the oppressed and disillusioned, Emma's possibility of return becomes a beacon, a reminder that the tides of history can shift in favour of the bold and the resilient. Harold's fear of Harthacnut's invasion intensifies as news filters in from the continent. Sightings of Danish ships and mercenaries unease English coasts. The mere possibility of Emma's alliances transforming into armed action keeps Harold's forces on high alert. Every stormy day that passes without an invasion is a relief briefly savoured, but always overshadowed by the lurking threat that Emma and Harthacnut will finally make their move. Emma's determination unites disparate factions. Viking mercenaries, exiled nobles, ambitious clergymen drawn by her vision of a restored royal line. She spends her wealth generously, supporting plots and preparing fleets. Her circle of trust is forged not through coercion, but by inspiring belief in a cause greater than any one person. Emma transforms from exiled queen to a rallying point, poised to change the course of England's destiny yet again. Harold, pushed to the edge, begins to rule with increasing harshness, imposing martial law in the most troubled regions and arresting suspected plotters. His desperation for control only fuels further discontent. Emma uses his heavy-handed methods as proof of his unfitness to rule, fanning the flames of rebellion among those yearning for justice and a return to the old order. The stage is set for inevitable confrontation between rival camps. Emma's gifts extend beyond politics. Her charisma pulls together disparate groups who might otherwise quarrel. Wise and experienced, she listens as much as she commands, drawing out the ambitions and grievances of her supporters. Her ability to forge unity from division makes her resistance movement both resilient and unpredictable, a force that Harold cannot simply dismiss, nor easily conquer through brute strength alone. As winter closes in, signs of restlessness surface across England. Markets and towns hum with tension, awaiting news from over the sea. Emma's allies grow bolder, while Harold's men become more suspicious and ruthless. The air shivers with anticipation, the knowledge that something momentous is approaching. In distant Flanders, Emma prepares for the coming storm, her every waking moment spent in pursuit of her son's right to the English throne. The struggle between Harold and Emma is far from over. She has become a symbol of resilience, resistance, and hope cast in exile, but never powerless. With every scheme and alliance, the fate of England remains uncertain. As Emma's plans near fruition, the realm holds its breath, anxious to see whether Harold's desperate measures will be enough, or whether the exiled queen's cunning will succeed in restoring her son to the crown. Chapter 7. Shadows and Schemes. As night settles over the troubled kingdom, Harold's regime turns inward, eyeing everyone with suspicion. Ministers who once toasted his triumphs now whisper in secret. Shadows gather not just in lonely corridors, but within the hearts of those closest to power. Old loyalties begin to crumble, and uncertainty creeps into even the grandest halls. Harold's every decision seems haunted by doubt, and the air crackles with unease. Candlelight flickers in noble households as plans are laid in hushed voices. Harold tightens his grip, ordering spies to listen at doors and watch for signs of rebellion. Noble families sense the danger, old friends become cautious, and laughter falls silent as trust corrodes. Outside the palace, rumours drift from village to village. The people sense a storm building, each day more oppressive than the last, as fear takes root in every heart. Within the castle walls, betrayal seeps like mist. Councillors who swore fealty now weigh their options, seeking alliances in secret corners. Harold, once the confident king, feels the pressure closing in from all sides. Eyes that once offered respect now study him with calculation, measuring every gesture and command. The king's nights stretch long, haunted by doubts and an ever-lengthening list of potential traitors lurking in his shadow. Under the guise of unity, Harold orchestrates purges within the nobility. Families awoken in darkness are torn apart as trusted retainers are led away for questioning, or worse. The dread of not knowing who will vanish next keeps even the boldest nobles awake at night. Those who survive the regime's gaze grow desperate, each purged soul deepening the sense that no one, no matter their rank, can truly be safe anymore. Whispers travel faster than the wind. A look exchanged between rivals becomes grounds for suspicion. Harold feeds these suspicions, encouraging informants to report rumours and punishing any sign of disloyalty. The kingdom's court becomes a nest of secrets, with allegiances shifting like quicksand. Every invitation to a feast is viewed with dread, for behind every smile a scheme might be brewing, and no one can guess who will fall next. What once was a council for guidance becomes a chamber thick with anxiety and accusation. Former allies eye one another cautiously, keenly aware that a single misstep could bring ruin. Harold, perched at the head of the table, speaks less, watching more. His silence is growing heavier by the day. In those tense meetings, words are weapons, and the greatest danger now lies not beyond the castle, but within its walls. Outside the royal chambers, a new kind of fear takes hold. Servants pass messages in coded phrases, unsure who might be listening. Soldiers become enforcers, keeping not just the peace but the king's secrets. The rhythms of court life shift, festivities wane, and music grows sombre, replaced by hurried footsteps and half-heard murmurs. Anxiety lingers everywhere, making every dusk darker and every dawn more uncertain. Families of the purged beg for clemency, but mercy is rarely granted in these times. Harold seems resolved at his displays of ruthlessness intended to warn those contemplating treachery. Yet with each new victim, the fabric of the realm unravels a little more. Noble hearts grow colder, driven by fear and survival rather than any sense of loyalty. The king succeeds in silencing voices, but only by turning friends into foes and fueling further unrest. Even as the regime grows harsher, plots multiply behind closed doors. Ambitious nobles see opportunity in disorder, crafting dangerous alliances. Harbouring secrets becomes an art in itself. Harold, sensing the web tightening, grows ever more rigid. His reliance on a trusted circle narrows sharply, yet paranoia eats at every bond. The knowledge that he cannot fully trust anyone, even his oldest confidant, saps his strength and resolve by nightfall. The kingdom's priests and wise men feel the chill as well. Called to court, they walk carefully, weighing their words before the king. Even Harold's advisers, hand-chosen for their loyalty, grow uneasy. The lines between counsel and accusation blur. Though religion offers assurances to the frightened nobles, even the sacred halls are not beyond the reach of suspicion. Nowhere remains untouched by the king's withering scrutiny. Nightly, Harold's sleep is fragmented by anxious dreams. Shadows flicker at the edge of his vision faces, he trusted now twisted by betrayal. In restless solitude he wonders who plots in the shadows. The burden on his shoulders grows, the prospect of betrayal far more terrifying than any open enemy. Yet admitting to fear would betray weakness, so Harold braces himself, steeling his heart against both truth and illusion. Loyalty tests intensify. Nobles are compelled to pledge fealty in elaborate rituals, each one carefully orchestrated to expose cracks in their devotion. Some break under pressure, publicly humiliated as a warning to the others. Harold watches each reaction with a calculating eye, noting every hesitation. These rituals, meant to ensure allegiance, instead further isolate him, trapping the king within a cage of his own suspicion and control. Paranoia becomes the dominant force in Harold's rule. Every whispered conversation is suspect, each unsigned letter a possible plot. Harold's own court feels foreign to Hema maze of shifting alliances and echoes of treachery. Some nights he walks the silent corridors alone, pausing at doors to listen. The kingdom's heartbeat is erratic, fearful and wild, as even the bravest souls become cowed by the oppressive uncertainty that now reigns. As the king's trust erodes, secret alliances begin to form among his enemies and his own household. Harsh measures fuel resentment, spurring rivals to greater acts of defiance. Some plan silent rebellions, plotting their futures even as they bend knee. Those who dare to scheme are careful. They know one wrong move could mean disaster. Underneath the order Harold enforces, chaos quietly gathers, feeding on every injustice and slight. In a desperate bid for control, Harold expands the role of his most loyal guards. They fill the halls at night, their armor glinting in torchlight. Members of the royal household grow accustomed to sudden inspections and the looming presence of watchful eyes. Fear mounts as even the innocent are sometimes swept up in the purges. Harold's choices breed obedience, but they also breed a simmering anger that can only stay hidden for so long. Informants thrive in this climate, their fortunes rising as trust declines elsewhere. New power brokers emerge, men and women whose whispered words shape the king's suspicions. They collect secrets for personal gain, fueling the endless cycle of betrayal and reprisal. Harold, increasingly dependent on their reports, finds himself ensnared by half-truths and lies. Each day the weight of uncertainty grows heavier, and every new secret deepens his isolation. As purges claim even more distinguished families, the court becomes a shadow of its former self. Long banquets fall quiet, lesser nobles slip away under the cover of darkness, seeking safer ground. The fabric of society strains under the pressure of constant suspicion. Harold had hoped that unyielding authority would bring order, but instead it seeds rebellion everywhere. The more he grabs for control, the more resistance silently takes root beneath his feet. Outside the palace, the people feel the consequences as well. Once stable villages are disrupted by conscriptions and investigations. Old friendships fracture under suspicion, with neighbors wondering who might betray them to royal agents. Across the kingdom, fear becomes as common as bread. Some whisper of Harold's tyranny, knowing that even a careless word could reach the wrong ears. Others hope for change, praying that the tension will finally break. Meanwhile, Harold's rivals' hoes, banished or stripped of power, begin to rally in secret. Dispossessed nobles nurse old grudges, their plots fueled by stories of lost honor. Messengers travel by moonlight, forging alliances with distant factions. Each new conspiracy is threaded with risk, yet the taste of vengeance proves irresistible. The forces gathering in darkness grow bolder, itching for the moment when Harold's vigilance might first falter, Harold, increasingly haunted by the weight of potential betrayal, becomes a prisoner of his own vigilance. The line between true threats and imagined ones blurs dangerously. He paces through the palace at night, drawn to the cold silence of the throne room, where every echo raises new fears. There he contemplates the loneliness of power, understanding too late that the shadow he fears most may be the darkness inside himself. While Harold clings to authority, his kingdom teeters on the edge of collapse. The tight fist he uses to command order now squeezes the life from his own rule. Even his most trusted companions show signs of fatigue, worn thin by endless suspicion. Behind every closed door, a new intrigue brews. The sense of security that once defined Harold's reign is gone, replaced by a cycle of doubt, retaliation, and ever-deepening unrest. Those who still stand by Harold struggle to convince him that not every shadow hides an enemy. Some beg the king to show clemency, to release his grip before the kingdom fractures beyond repair. But Harold, shaped by the betrayals of his own court, cannot relent. His vision narrows to a single, convictionally unyielding control can preserve his throne. In this chapter of shadows and schemes, even hope is seen as a potential threat. Night after night, the cycle continues. Shadows lengthen in the halls, and suspicion refuses to fade. As Harold fights sleep, his mind churns with names and faces, searching for the next traitor waiting to strike. The kingdom holds its breath with him, trapped in a restless suspense. Each plot discovered only seems to birth another, and Harold's resolve, though hardened, is constantly tested by the wheeling fate that now governs his reign. This chapter closes with the kingdom more divided than ever. The sense of ever-present danger lingers, settling deep into the stone of every castle and the hearts of every family. Harold, surrounded by enemies and plagued by doubt, has become a king more feared than loved. The future looks shadowed, uncertain, and perilous. And as the night deepens, Harold's only companion is the echo of his own restless heartbeat, lost within the gloom. Chapter 8. The end draws near. Whispers travelled through cold stone corridors and misty market squares alike. Cnut's return was no longer mere rumour, but a looming threat that pressed upon Harold's fragile regime. Each whispered name and half-glimpsed messenger tightened the tension across England. The uneasy calm began to fracture as the kingdom's fate seemed to hang by a rapidly thinning thread, setting the stage for turmoil that would soon boil over. Within the royal halls, Harold's world was shrinking. Once surrounded by allies, he now found himself bound to his bed as illness drained him of strength. The faces that once offered reassurance now seemed wary, careful, silently calculating what might follow if the king could not recover. Every cough was met with anxious glances, for Harold's fragility was no longer a secret among those closest to him. Outside, advisers grasped for solutions summoning loyalty, rallying regional lords, and feverishly writing letters that begged for support. Yet the confidence they tried to project was brittle. These men felt England's unity slipping through their fingers. In shadowed conversations, some already weighed their loyalties anew, sensing that the tides of power might soon be swept in a different direction altogether. Nobles who had once pledged themselves to Harold quietly courted Harthacnut's messengers. Secret meetings in torchlit halls, sworn oaths offered behind closed doors, old friendships tossed aside for survival's sake of the political chessboard shifted with urgency. Harold's illness, once a minor rumour, now emboldened rivals eager to align themselves with whatever future seemed most secure. Suspicion brewed in every corner of the realm. Meanwhile, the common people spoke in hushed tones at twilight, uncertain what the coming days would bring. Merchants and craftsmen wondered if markets would soon be closed by conflict, while peasants looked anxiously to the horizon, fearing the return of another foreign ruler. England's former unity dissolved into uncertainty. Every village, every town seemed to hold its breath, bracing for an upheaval they could neither control nor predict. Harold, restless and isolated, wrestled with memories of his rise to power. He recalled the boldness that had given him the throne, the alliances forged in haste, and the battles won by grit and cunning. But now, those achievements felt like distant echoes overshadowed by illness and loneliness. The king was haunted by regrets and visions of enemies gathering like storm clouds beyond his reach. Night brought little comfort. Illuminated only by flickering candlelight, Harold dreamt of his half-brother's ships drawing closer with every passing hour. His sleep was fractured, filled with shadows whispering accusations, reminders of betrayal, broken promises, and the price of holding power against the odds. Even in moments of quiet, the spectre of Harthacnut's return lingered, refusing to release its grip on his conscience. Inside Westminster's ancient walls, advisers argued heatedly. Some urged Harold to bargain with Harthacnut's supporters, hoping to preserve what little authority remained. Others advocated for defiance, pushing for desperate last stands. The king's chambers echoed with the turmoil of divided counsel, each voice growing more frantic as the prospect of bloody confrontation loomed over their weary court. Messages from distant shires arrived daily, bearing news of unrest and shifting allegiances. Once loyal thanes now offered only ambiguous assurances, hedging their bets in England's deepening uncertainty. Rebels and opportunists grasped for advantage, sensing that the chaos of succession could be their ladder to prominence. Harold's hold on the realm had become little more than a fraying thread, tested with every sunrise. In the heart of London, even the city's guards had grown uneasy, unsure which orders to follow, or whose banner they might serve should conflict ignite. The city's thrum, once steady and confident, now resonated with nervous energy. Rumours swirled of unrest, of hidden weapons and secret rendezvous. Tension pressed in from every side, threatening to break the city's fragile calm at any moment. At the docks, news spread with the coming breezeword of Viking ships gathering along foreign shores, and of seasoned warriors loyal to Harthacnut ready to set sail. Fishermen overheard sailors' boasts of impending upheaval, and carried these tales back home. The very air seemed charged with anticipation. England's rivers and coastlines, once arteries of commerce, could soon become battlefields in a war over the throne. For Harold, time became slippery and uncertain, measured only by the worsening of his symptoms and the silence of his once vocal supporters. He paced the length of his chambers beneath heavy tapestries, feeling the burdensome gaze of his ancestors in every woven thread. The king's private agony was matched only by the quickening pulse of history outside his shuttered windows each day, darker than the last. His mother, Emma of Normandy, watched events unfold with grim resolve. Once influential, she now found herself sidelined as factions plotted, seeking only what they could salvage from looming disaster. Emma's wisdom, hard-earned through decades at the heart of Anglo-Saxon power, could not soften the reality that England teetered at a precipice, its fate suspended between the fading reign of her ailing son and the uncertain rule ahead. Through palace corridors, anxiety carried like a chill wind. Servants exchanged anxious glances, moving quickly past doorways where tense voices argued strategy and suspicion. Even the most menial tasks became burdened with dread each days, uncertainty making the royal household feel less like a seat of power and more like the eye of an impending storm. Fear became everyone's silent companion. Priests and bishops offered solemn counsel, urging prayer and urging Harold to seek forgiveness for past deeds. The weight of faith and fate, intertwined in every candlelit chapel, brought little solace to the king. The prayers for peace mingled with pleas for mercy and survival, echoing against stone altars as England's spiritual leaders acknowledged just how precarious their world had become. As the days dragged on, minor rebellions flared across the countryside. Some lords, emboldened by Harold's vulnerability, seized the moment to settle old grudges or claim new lands. Scattered violence signalled the slow unravelling of central power, a kingdom once united now fragmented by ambition and fear. News of skirmishes arrived at court like distant thunder, urging the regime toward either desperate action or fragile compromise. By now, Harold's circle of trusted advisers had grown perilously small. Old allies drifted away, unable or unwilling to defend a faltering king. The king's loneliness deepened a stark contrast to the boisterous councils and feasts that once defined his reign. Isolation sharpened his anxieties, as old confidences turned to mistrust and the silence of empty halls became nearly unbearable. To many, it seemed England herself held her breath. The countryside, embroidered with fog and early spring blooms, appeared timeless, yet beneath these calm surfaces danger gathered. Armies marched in secret. Old banners were unfurled as families braced for violence. Loyalists and opportunists alike moved quietly, uncertain which master they would soon serve, yet all prepared for the upheaval that now felt inevitable. In rare lucid moments, Harold dictated letters, desperate missives to distant supporters, pleading for renewed loyalty. His handwriting, once confident, now trembled on the page. Every message carried both an appeal and a warning, as the king sought out any last remnant of the authority that once crowned his brow. These letters became his lifeline to the world outside as his health slipped steadily away. As rumours of Harold's decline swelled, so too did stories of Harthacnut's preparations. Spies and informants slipped quietly into port towns, gathering knowledge of defences and spreading tales of decisive action to come. Each new report, real or exaggerated, stoked unrest in the hearts of both noble and commoner. England, unmoored by its king's weakness, now found itself prey to rumours as much as to swords. One by one, noble houses hedged their betsome, dispatching envoys toward Harthacnut, others locking down their estates in nervous isolation. Alliances were forged and broken in quick succession, promises traded in the hope of surviving the storm that everyone sensed was approaching. The game of power became a blur of negotiation and suspicion, with every hand outstretched to grasp advantage before it was too late. In the end, Harold's days settled into ritual, medical treatments and whispered counsel, fitful sleep and lingering regret, a king's life contained by four walls and the failing strength of his own body. Yet outside, the pace accelerated, messengers on horseback, flashes of steel, the hurried packing of valuables in manor houses. All around, a nation steeled itself for the final act in a drama it could not escape. As one era faded, uncertainty swelled to a breaking point. Church bells rang with uncommon urgency, their clamour carrying over rooftops and fields, announcing not peace, but the fear of imminent change. For the people of England, hope and dread walked side by side through village and city. The old order teetered, everyone aware at last that history was about to turn with a force that could not be resisted. So, as Harthacnut's sails lurked just beyond sight, Harold's chapter drew toward a sombre close. The weight of looming return, of unfinished business and unresolved scores, bore down on every soul within the kingdom. England, fractured and afraid, braced herself. Soon a torch would be passed not in ceremony, but in the flames of struggle, shaping the uncertain dawn yet to come. Chapter 9. The Death of the King. Night drapes the kingdom in uneasy silence as Harold, once the figure at the heart of England's storms, meets his end without warning. The news slips quietly through palace corridors, carried on trembling lips. For many, fear quickly takes root. Uncertainty now chills the air where rulership once lingered. The tale of Harold's final hours is laced with whispers, each telling a slightly different story. His passing was abrupt. a sudden collapse that left even his closest attendants at a loss. Some claimed they saw a shadow pass across his face before he fell, while others believed it was the weight of burdens too heavy for one man's shoulders. The cause is forever cloaked in mystery, leaving all to question what forces had loosened Harold's grip on life in the prime of his reign. The court's response was swift, yet strangely subdued. Servants moved quietly, suppressing both grief and curiosity. Nobles exchanged wary glances, careful not to betray their suspicions. The halls of Winchester, once filled with Harold's brisk commands, now echoed with muted steps and unfinished prayers. For many, his death signalled not closure, but the opening of a far greater uncertainty. Beyond the palace, word of the king's death seeped into the city. Marketplaces fell silent as news drifted from stall to stall. Whispers rippled through crowds, fusing together fear, shock, and dark speculation. Some recalled omens that had haunted the city days before, strange animals seen at dawn, or sudden chills on summer mornings. The kingdom seemed to hold its breath, awaiting what would come next. In the absence of a living king, the aura of unease grew heavier. Soldiers patrolled uneasily. Traders kept their heads down, muttering of plots and poisoned wine. Rumour swirled with each telling. Was Harold struck by illness, sorcery, or betrayal within his inner circle? An air of distrust lingered, stretching from gilded courtrooms to the muddy lanes of distant villages. Harold's burial reflected both his fraught reign and the whispering paranoia swirling around his death. It was conducted quietly at St. Clement Danes, without the trumpets or grand procession that crowned greater kings. Attendees kept their distances, eyes darting to gauge each other's loyalties. Even in death, Harold's presence brought more questions than comfort, this grave becoming a symbol of unease rather than peace. The modest ceremony ended as dusk bled into night. Mourners departed quickly, careful to speak no words that might be overheard. It was not simply grief that filled the air, but caution, for in the shadow of one king's fall, the ambitions and fears of another began to stir. The River Thames moved quietly past, as if bearing away secrets left unspoken beside Harold's resting place. In the weeks that followed, the story of Harold's death grew wilder with each recounting. Some declared he was poisoned by those eager for a new regime. Others whispered of haunting the ghost of a wronged brother seeking vengeance. Each tale twisted the memory of the king, shaping him into a figure caught between sympathy and suspicion as the kingdom waited for a new order to emerge. As rumours tangled and multiplied, many remembered the uncertainty of Harold's riser, reign shadowed by scepticism and the constant threat of rivals. Suddenly, his abrupt end seemed both tragic and inevitable. His life, so marked by struggle, set the tone for his death, a puzzle with too many pieces missing, inviting the imaginations and anxieties of a divided nation. Harthacnut's supporters, sensing their moment, quietly tested loyalties across the realm. Agents were sent in secret, voices lowered in smoky taverns and candlelit churches. Where fear took root, Harthacnut's name spread on the lips of those longing for change, or simply for certainty. Harold Harefoot's passing left a gap, one that begged to be filled by returning power, or by yet deeper chaos. Meanwhile, those still loyal to Harold mourned in their own guarded fashion. Some remembered him as a pragmatic ruler, doing what he must to keep the kingdom together amid uncertain times. Their grief was private, hidden beneath sleeves or behind curtained windows. Even as suspicion flourished, a quiet current of respect endured for the king who had tried to hold a fractious England together. In distant corners of England, the news was met with mingled dread and hope. Peasants gathered near fires, debating in low voices what this meant for their lives. While some dreaded more taxes or harsher laws under a new king, others christened the moment as a chance for prophecy to come true, the return of a rightful ruler perhaps, or a new era altogether. Anxiety and anticipation pulsed in equal measure. As time wore on, the details of Harold's last day became increasingly distorted. Some insisted he had seen visions, others that a cloaked stranger had visited him in the night. The lack of clarity stoked fires of superstition. Midwives and priests, traders and warriors, all found meaning in the unknowable, piecing together fragments into myths that would linger for generations. In tales far from the royal heartland, Harold's death became a cautionary story. Parents warned children not to covet thrones, lest their fates twist with as much shadowy intrigue as Harold Harefoot's. His sudden fall was attributed to curses, fate, or ancestral furiash telling remade him as lesson or warning, casting deepening shadows over the facts of his reign. The vacuum left by Harold's departure was more than political. It touched every part of daily life. Markets hesitated, unsure which coins would now carry value. Nobles fortified their homes, expecting strife. Messengers galloped along lonely roads, delivering secret words and orders as Cnut assembled allies across the North Sea. The uncertainty bred by Harold's passing seemed to halt time across a troubled kingdom. In Winchester, once the seat of Harold's authority, monks recorded his passing with careful phrases. There was no praise or condemnation, only sombre lines, hinting at unknowable causes. Centuries later, their words remain, brief, ambiguous, and loaded with regret for all that was lost to suspicion and silence. The official story, like so much else from Harold's reign, was a patchwork of half-truths. The wider world, Scotland, Normandy, Denmark watched England's unravelling with keen interest. Envoys dispatched hurried messages home, reporting the instability at the heart of Cnut's former empire. Some neighbours offered condolences while quietly probing for advantage. Others waited, eager to see which way the balance of power might tip. Harold's mysterious end was not just England's tragedy, but Europe's opportunity. The legacy of Harold's death became tied to the fate of the empire he briefly ruled. Some asked if a stronger king might have survived, or if destiny itself had doomed Cnut's line to splinter. These questions echoed in lonely castles and crowded streets alike, reframing Harold as a tragic figure both more and less than the sovereign he had once claimed to be. As spring unfurled beyond the cold stone walls of England's cities, life pressed forward reluctant but unstoppable. Yet in the quiet hours, people still pondered the suddenness of their king's end. Was there meaning in the speed with which his reign unravelled? Or was Harold simply swept away by tides he never fully controlled, his fate entwined with larger forces at work in a troubled age? In years to follow, Harold's grave became a site of muted pilgrimage. Some laid flowers in discreet visits, others left notes filled with questions petitions to a king whose story remained unresolved. Over time, vegetation crept gently across the stone, weeds and wildflowers mingled, blurring the memory of a ruler who had lived and died beneath history's heavy shadows. Children, growing up in the uncertainty left behind, listened wide-eyed to tales spun by parents and travellers alike. Harold's story became part tragedy, part warning, echoing the dangers of ambition and the shifting sands of loyalty. As the kingdom struggled to find footing under new rulers, the name Harefoot lingered in song and rumour, whispered along the ever-changing roads of England. In the tapestry of England's history, Harold's end formed a dark but crucial thread. His mysterious death and the questions it raised shaped the kingdom's politics for years, influencing who could trust whom and how power must be seized or defended. He became, paradoxically, both cautionary tale and linchpin whose brief and troubled reign transformed the destiny of countless lives. Even today, scholars quarrel about Harold's final hours. Was he undone by poison, heartbreak, or the relentless stress of rule under suspicion? Scribes sift through chronicles, hoping to separate fact from myth in a world where the truth was bound as tightly as any crown. The uncertainty endures, making Harold's story both alluring and eternally elusive forever, the king defined by endings rather than beginnings. And so the tale of Harold Harefoot closes, not with triumph or lasting peace, but with uneasy silence and unanswered questions. His mysterious death marked the passing of an era, and the trembling dawn of a new and volatile chapter. In the end, England's fate drifted forward, shadowed by rumour, shaped by lingering memory, and waiting, always, for the next claimant to the worn and dangerous throne. Chapter 10. The Empire Unravels. The death of Harold Harefoot sends ripples of uncertainty through England's fractured courts. With no strong ruler to hold the North Sea Empire together, old alliances begin to crumble. The news of Harold's passing spreads quickly, and the nobles, exhausted by years of instability, look anxiously toward the future. Everyone wonders if the delicate balance of power is now lost forever, and what the next dawn will bring. Cnut, son of Cnut and Emma, swiftly returns to England, reclaiming his father's throne. His fleet glides across the North Sea, sails catching the wind of opportunity. London welcomes him, but jubilation is tempered with unease. The shadow of Harold's divisive rule lingers, and many suspect the unity of Cnut's empire will not survive. Harthacnut's reign begins amid whispers of vengeance and the uneasy silence that follows bitter conflict. Emma of Normandy, long exiled and outmaneuvered, steps once more into the political arena. She reclaims her seat beside her son Harthacnut, believing stability can return to the kingdom. Yet the court is wary. Emma's reputation as a shrewd power broker haunts the corridors of Westminster. Her rivals watch each move, fearing that old ambitions will reignite new conflicts in a realm already weary from strife. Despite the triumphant return of Emma and Harthacnut, the North Sea Empire begins to unravel at the edges. Denmark, Norway, and England, bound by the iron will of Cnut now, drift apart. Each kingdom senses its own fate is no longer tied to a distant monarch. Ambitious lords see opportunities as imperial unity weakens, planting seeds of future discord that no one seems able to uproot. Without Harold or Cnut, England is left exposed and unstable. The nobility, fractured by years of rivalry, begins to openly challenge royal authority. Old wounds resurface, vendettas, betrayals, and whispered conspiracies. A once mighty realm slides dangerously close to chaos. Harold's brief reign, though ruthless, had provided a tenuous order, now replaced by an uncertainty that chills those who remember the bloodshed of succession past. The dissolution of Cnut's empire feels inevitable. Across the North Sea, old enemies move restlessly, sensing England's vulnerability. Viking raiders once again gaze hungrily at the English coast. Danish nobles question Harthacnut's loyalty, while Norwegian chieftains reclaim their independence. The vision of a united northern kingdom fades, replaced by the grim reality of fragmented rule and looming foreign threats. As Harthacnut seeks to reassert control, his every decision is questioned. His rule is harsh, fueled by suspicion and the need to assert his claim. Heavy taxes and punitive policies breed resentment among both Saxons and Danes. Memories of Harold's pragmatic, brutal leadership take on a nostalgic glow for some, who recall the order he maintained in contrast to current hardship. Emma tries to mend rifts among the nobles. She calls secret councils, offering favours and forging uneasy alliances. Yet mistrust lingers. Her past intrigues, including those against Harold, haunt her attempts at reconciliation. Each meeting is haunted by reminders of betrayed trusts and shifting loyalties that no royal decree can truly erase. The empire's foundation crumbles no matter how Emma tries to hold it together. In towns and villages, ordinary people feel the cracks in the kingdom. Rumours swirl from market stalls to alehouses of kings returning, of foreign invaders, of yet more war. Farmers grow anxious about their harvests, unsure if the next tax collector brings lawful demands or threats of violence. The peace Harold enforced, however imperfect, is now missed by many weary of endless change. The North Sea Empire's decline is gradual but relentless. One by one, outposts fall to local warlords and ambitious nobles. The king's right, once feared, now barely reaches past London. Former allies turn rivals, and petty feuds flare with new intensity. Beneath the surface, the realm is being reshaped, fragmented by ambition, fear, and the vacuum that Harold's death has left behind. Harold's legacy is debated among the lords. Some remember a usurper who seized power ruthlessly. Others speak of a king who, though divisive, held England together when stability was at its most fragile. Whatever the verdict, all agree that his reign marked a turning point. It exposed the kingdom's weaknesses and set patterns that would shape English politics for years to come. Harthacnut's return, far from restoring unity, accelerates division. His quest for vengeance against Harold's supporters sows new seeds of hatred. Noble houses that sided with Harold are penalized, their fortunes stripped, their loyalties questioned. Some flee abroad, others plot in the shadows, and still others resolve to bide their time, nursing resentments that will fuel future rebellions against royal power. Emma's ambitions, once considered vital to the royal cause, now draw fresh suspicion. In the shadows of court, whispers name her the true architect of England's misery, blaming her machinations for the cycle of conflict. Yet her influence endures, needed but resented. Emma's story intertwines fatefully with those of both Harold and Harthacnut. Her legacy is contentious as the tumultuous age itself. Across the former empire, the memory of Cnut the Great fades into legend, his legacy diminished by the chaos left in his wake. Merchants speak of safer days under his rule, while warriors mourn lost glory. Younger generations know only the uncertainty created by his heirs' rivalry. A golden age has ended, and the new era is defined by confusion, not conquest, as people yearn for lost stability. Harold's role in England's fate grows clearer as the years pass. His quest for power, though brief, exposed the deep fractures lurking beneath the throne. By seizing the crown through cunning and ruthlessness, he gave shape to the tumult that followed. To some, Harold was a necessary evil, ruthless yet efficient. To others, he remains a symbol of lost opportunity and irreversible decline. The empire's fall paves the way for new players. In Normandy, ambitious dukes watch events in England with keen interest. The fracturing of royal power north of the Channel hints at opportunities for bold men with claims and armies. The seeds of conquest, long sown by division and unrest, begin to sprout as England's fate tips towards a foreign horizon and whispers of invasion grow. For the English people, uncertainty rules every aspect of life. Old protections vanish as the king's reach recedes. Local strongmen enforce their own laws, and justice is swift but inconsistent. In the face of rising dangers, communities grow inward, clinging to custom and kin. The age of empire is over, replaced by a patchwork of shifting allegiances and the constant threat of violence. Harold's harsh policies eventually spark unrest that even he cannot contain. Riots flicker across southern England, fueled by heavy levies and bitter memories. The Crown's attempt to hold control through fear backfires as resentment breeds resistance. The realm teeters on the edge caught between nostalgia for lost unity and the relentless pull of local independence, setting the stage for dramatic change ahead. Emma's hopes for lasting, angle-etched Danish rule grow dim. Her allies dwindle, her networks fray. Despite her enduring influence, she can no longer hold the elements of power together. As England fragments, Emma's story becomes one of lost promise, a queen who saw the empire rise and fall, leaving only echoes of ambition and regret in her wake. Harold's reign, though often maligned, is pivotal. His calculated moves rewrote the script for royal succession, ensuring that no future king would claim the throne without challenge. Harold's legacy is one of enduring turbulence. He is both scapegoat and scapegoat, remembered for the mess he left and the uneasy order he briefly imposed. The kingdom's fate is forever altered by his ambition. As years pass, England descends further into turmoil. Each successive ruler struggles against the tide of division Harold unleashed. Factions deepen, loyalties shift, and trust in royal power declines. Chroniclers later reflect that Harold's brief rule set England on a darker path, a road leading not to Norse unity, but to fragmentation, crisis, and the eventual coming of a foreign conqueror. The spectre of the Normans grows larger on the horizon. Their envoys watch closely as England's leaders falter, sensing the kingdom's vulnerability. The Norman conquest looms, foreshadowed by the fractures sown in Harold's time. The Viking Agaso, full of daring and conquest, draws to a close. A new chapter of English history waits to be written, shaped by the chaos now at hand. Looking back, Harold Harefoot's story is one of ambition, conflict, and unintended consequence. His reign ended the fragile peace of the North Sea Empire and unlocked forces no king could control. Forgotten by many, Harold's legacy shapes the destinies of those who follow, as the realm he ruled over slips inexorably from Viking hands into the grip of Normandy. England's future is now uncertain. The empire unravels, and the Viking era ends in shadows. Yet, from its tangled history, stories of lost kings and faded empires endure. The lessons of Harold Harefoot echo on a reminder that the struggle for power never truly ends. Through triumph and ruin, the chronicles of England turn once more. As the world changes, we remember those who shaped it, knowingly or not, in moments of crisis and ambition.